Happy Tuesday, good people out there on YouTube and on Periscope. Welcome to Stir Crazy, episode number 61, COVID and the Cops. We are under attack. I'm your host, Kim Brown. Coming up on today's show, we are primarily going to focus on the two major things that are affecting our place in society right now at this moment in history. An epic pandemic where COVID-19 has now infected well over 2.5 million Americans with about 130, I think we're closing in on that number, 130,000 dead. And at this point in time, a lot of the states that were trying to reopen businesses normal, a lot of these places have put the brakes on just that because the Rona is making a comeback. The Rona said, I'm not done with y'all yet, US of A. And it's going to be troubling because there's going to be some attacks coming down on healthcare. As we know, the Trump administration is trying to take the ACA, the Affordable Health Care Act, back to court to try to get rid of it once and for all. But why would you get rid of something that provides healthcare to people in the midst of a pandemic? Well, guys, that is how serious the situation is with the coronavirus, because our leadership is failing us. America is a failed state at this point, and we got to figure out how to survive it. In addition to the Rona, however, the police is still very much out here beating on people, killing people. As the protests continue on across the country, major cities, small places, small towns, people are still taken to the streets and they are getting policy changes done. And we're going to talk about all of that and more. Of course, we always want to hear from you guys, our fantastic viewers and listeners, people who are checking us out on Spotify, on our podcast. Hey, shout out to y'all. Hit us up in the chat, hit us up in the comments, and you can always hit us up via email, stircrazy@therealnews.com. Well, right now, it's time to bring in our fantastic panel. And joining us today are Real News executive producer Lisa Snowden-McCray. And we're also joined today with recording artist and activist straight out of Baltimore City, Easy Jackson. What's up, y'all? This is all Maryland panel. I love this. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, what's up, Kim? Where your Old Bay? Where that Old Bay at?
Where the Old Bay? Do y'all drink Natty Boh? Because I'm not a Natty Boh person, but Old Bay, I double fist Old Bay for sure.
Yeah, I'll drink a Natty Boh here and there.
I don't like beer.
Well, that's that. Guys, I want to start the conversation off by checking in with the protest movement around the country. Even though a lot of the protest coverage has faded from the view or the purview of the mainstream media, the protests are still very much going on. This is incredible. Several weeks now of sustained marches on a variety of issues, ranging from the movement for Black lives to the movement for Black trans lives. As today is June 30th, the last day of Pride Month, there was a whole bunch of Pride marches and protests happening nationwide. And I wanted to start, where shall we start? Let's actually start in New York City, where we know that really the gay rights movement largely began at the Stonewall Inn after primarily gay and trans people of color were fed the fuck up with the way they were being treated by New York City Police Department and started to tear things up. And over the weekend, there was a lot of echoes of what happened at the Stonewall Inn because the NYPD yet again attacked gay and trans people who were demonstrating on behalf of their rights. Let's take a look at some of that footage. Well, that was unpleasant to watch. Gang, you know, when we talk about the struggle in the movement against police brutality and police accountability, really the gay community has been right there on the front lines, as they have been a marginalized community, a vulnerable community where there were specific laws targeting them and their, how they engage in relationships, and just to see them still getting beat up by police, a lot of intersectionality there too, because there's a lot of gay Black people, gay trans people who deal with the cops as being Black first and foremost, and then as part of their gender identity. You know, Lisa, when we look at the progress or lack thereof, when you see scenes like this happening as Pride Month comes to an end, what is your reaction to the video there?
My reaction isn't really shock at the violence anymore. It's not shock at the violence, especially geared towards members of the community. But I saw there was a little thing that was, I guess, in the corner saying that de Blasio, I guess, was tweeting one thing. I think that, like, we keep seeing these politicians that keep bringing these half-ass solutions like de-escalation and, you know, we're working on it and we're going to, like, shut down these police units, but really means this shuffling police around to other things. And, like, I guess we're not really going to see an end to this until we start getting actual measures that do something to keep people safe, because we're not seeing it right now.
Easy Jackson, I mean, we know that the gay and trans community has been targeted generationally by law enforcement and by society at large. And we know that, you know, these members are particularly vulnerable to not only police misconduct, but police violence and brutality, especially gay and trans sex workers, you know, dealing with sexual assault and, you know, being incarcerated in the wrong facilities, and a whole long list of issues that related to the state that the gay and trans community deals with. When you see people being attacked at the Stonewall Inn 50 years after the uprising first happened, from your perspective, has things improved, or are we still looking at a lot of the same stuff?
No, I mean, I think we're definitely looking at a lot of the same stuff, right? Like all of this stuff, all of these conversations are on a loop. But I think in some way, you know, a lot more light is being shed on it because of, you know, access to social media and people being able to kind of get a further reach with these videos. But we're constantly having the same conversation over and over again. You know, and for me, it's a little, it's heartbreaking to watch this video, right? Because you have all of these people who are from communities where they've been already marginalized, and, you know, some places even shunned for being themselves. And here they are celebrating an event that commemorates the very same thing that's still happening. It's all on a loop, right? I mean, last night I saw a clip of Golden Girls where Don Cheadle was talking to Blanche about the Confederate flag, and this episode was from 1988. It's like, yo, we're still having all of the same conversations over and over again.
You bring up an interesting point, guys, and we're going to come back to the protest movement, but I wanted to pause here for a second, Easy, to bring up something that you just said regarding that episode of the Golden Girls, because there was also a lot of chatter over social media this weekend how Hulu took down an episode of the Golden Girls. And Lisa, I saw you tweet about this, and I was like, I remember that episode very clearly because Michael, Dorothy's son, was engaged to a Black woman, an older Black woman, and I'm trying to remember the actress's name. Is it Rosalind Cash?
Yes, and I didn't know that she had passed.
Yeah, she did pass. And I didn't. Yeah, she had passed. But Michael was dating her, and she was older, and they were going to have talking about having a baby. I even think she was pregnant. But there was, I guess, an allegation that Blanche and Dorothy were in blackface, but that was not exactly true. Lisa, what was up with that one?
Here's what was going on. The A story was that Dorothy's son came home and he was like 20 and he was engaged to this 40-year-old Black lady who'd been married before. The B story was that Blanche and Rose were like on a fix yourself up kick. So they were like exercising and doing stuff. So they had mud masks on their faces. And they had like their hair pushed back. So I guess that was supposed to be like the afro part. And so they bust into this room full of these Black women that are in the middle of having like this conversation because they're all realizing that this mismatched couple is happening. And then they're like, we're not really Black. We have mud masks on our face. So if it's a joke, Black people love the Golden Girls. Like, you can't deny us this.
But it gets to the larger issue of corporations and media entities and, you know, Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's. Like, they're doing a lot of this performative, you know, preemptive removal of certain things, or, you know, taking stuff down. And it's like, nobody asked y'all for that. I don't think anyone there was no petition against Hulu to take off the Golden Girls.
We just want to not die, if that's at all possible. Nobody said anything about the voice of Cleveland Brown on The Family Guy, or like random Asian characters on other cartoons, or the Golden Girls. Like, just, can we not die? Like, can that happen? And everybody's doing like everything but this. Like, why do y'all want people to die so bad? I don't understand.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's like, but I mean, this is in general, right? Like, we pay more attention to the semantics than actual policy change, right? Like, the actual policy work is boring, it's mundane, and nobody really wants to get into those conversations. But who are the people who are making these decisions where it's legal for these police officers to bust up in a crowd and start beating up people who are peacefully protesting? How do we get that out? How do we get that policy out? How do we get it to a point where a police officer does not feel comfortable doing that? And you can paint all of the fucking streets in America Black Lives Matter, and you can change Aunt Jemima to Aunt Viv or whatever you want to do. Like, it still does not make me feel comfortable as a Black man walking down the street at night when a police car pulls up.
Truce. Gang, I wanted to go, like I said, we're going to do a little around the country quick roundup, mashup of some of the protest actions that were happening. In this next video, Easy Jackson, I actually saw this on your timeline, and it also brought a smile to my face. Let's go to the anti-gentrification march that happened in Brooklyn. BK, stand up over the weekend. Let's have a look at that.
Black people used to live here. Black people used to live here. Fire, fire, gentrifier. Fire, fire, gentrifier. Fire, fire, gentrifier. Gentrifier. Black people used to live here. 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 Fire, fire, gentrifiers. Fire, fire, gentrifiers. Fire, fire, gentrifiers. Fire, fire, gentrifiers. Black people used to live here. Black people used to live here. Black women used to live here. Fire, fire, gentrifiers. Fire, fire, gentrifiers.
Man, the hook is crazy. Turn that up. I love that song. That was had a nice little beat, nice little kick to it and everything.
Yeah, that joint rock.
Did you guys see the looks on the faces of the people who were brunching? Mind you, most of them were not wearing masks. Oh, but the saltiness, the saltiness on the looks of the faces was delicious. A lot of people are taken to the streets for a lot of different reasons, but definitely gentrification is a form of violence against long-standing Black communities who are being displaced now in a lot of major cities, Brooklyn included, Baltimore included. I was watching that video, and my friend asked, he was like, is that on U Street in DC? I said, no, but it very well could have been.
That's one of the things I said. Somebody asked, where was it? And I was like, I think it's Philly, but it looked like it could be like anywhere gentrification USA.
Lisa, you were saying? I'm sorry, dear.
Oh, I was just saying, I also thought it was DC at first. But like,
No, go ahead.
When that they're gentrifiers to their face. I'm all for that.
Yeah. My favorite part of that video is there's a white girl on her bicycle who like has to turn into the march. And I just can't even imagine what was going through her head at the time. Like to just like have to, like, now you have to ride with this now. Like, you have to ride beside this. I died laughing when I saw that.
Dwayne, pop up the tweet where it tells you who were the organizers of that march, so I can read them off. Fire, gentrifier. That joint rocked. Fire,
Black
gentrifier.
people used to live here.
That's not the tweet. That's not the tweet. But we gonna get to them. Actually,
yeah. Can we please get to them?
That's cool. Okay, tell you what, we're gonna shift gears and go right to this charming couple, gang. When we're talking about protests that happened over the weekend, of course, y'all know St. Louis has kept it all the way live ever since and before the Ferguson uprisings back in 2014, 2015. But there was a march that took place through the city's Del Mar neighborhood. If you're familiar with St. Louis, the Del Mar Loop is very much a dividing line between the northern part of the city, getting up into University City area, and then getting down into the Central West End. I used to live in St. Louis, so I know these things. But take a look at this picture, and I actually think there's some video too. Let's go to the video, Dwayne, and then I want us to come back to this picture because this picture is crazy. But the video kind of gives you an idea of how things were happening in real time. Let's take a look. Okay, I want us to run that. Let's run that one more time, gang, because what you're looking for is a blonde woman wearing a black and white striped shirt. She got the pistol. She got the thing in her hand. She got her finger on the trigger the whole time. And then it pans off into the yard with another gentleman holding the AK, again, with his finger on the trigger. Let's take a look at that video once more. That's horrifying. Okay, so let's pop up the tweet. So this couple has been identified as the McClowskis, and apparently they are a husband and wife attorney duo in the St. Louis area. And as you see, as identified by Cori Bush, she's a St. Louis activist. I believe she's also running for office. But she says in her tweet, today in St. Louis, protesters were walking down the street. That's it. Headed to our destination when this happened. Meet attorneys Mark and Matricia McClowski. Thankfully, no one was physically hurt by their gross behavior. And these pictures, the still photos are amazing because this gentleman, he's got the AK. He's standing in his front yard on his front stairs. The wife, Patricia McClowski, has the pistol that she is pointing at people with her finger on the trigger. You know anything about gun safety, you do not point a weapon at people unless you are ready to pull that thing, okay? And sometimes, even in the video, there was a longer version of this video. These geniuses were even seen pointing the guns at each other, okay? Now, we could only hope that they weren't loaded, but at the same time, I mean, if you know about gun culture, you don't pull that thing out just to flash it. You pull it out if you intend on using it. And the looks on their faces looked as if that they were not opposed to firing on these peaceful protesters who were not threatening them in any way, who were not causing any damage to their neighborhood or down the street or whatever. But they were just not happy with this protest coming down their street. Lisa, when you see armed people not being threatened, standing on their property, pointing guns at peaceful protesters, and to my knowledge, as of right now, there have been no charges filed against them, although what they did was clearly a crime. I mean, you cannot brandish. That's very much against the rules. What are your thoughts looking at that video and then looking at the faces of the McClowskis?
My initial thought is like the thought process that goes through your head that you grab your gun, but you don't put no shoes on. Like, so they have shoes on. And my second more serious thought is like things like this, things like you see like these white people freaking out in like grocery stores over having to put masks on, or showing up here in Baltimore to protect a Columbus monument when they don't even freaking live in in Baltimore City. It's just like, we're clearly in the midst of a colossal change, and a lot of white people are not able to handle it. And like, that's not my problem because that's their culture, but they might want to handle that because they got a lot of crazy people that they have to like, it reminds me of this Toni Morrison quote where she's like, if you have to function, if the way that you function is by saying that somebody else is below you, then you have a serious problem. And like these people, this couple, the rest of the white people losing their fucking minds across the country have serious problems. And I don't know, how they're going to adapt to whatever changes come from this period.
Easy, I'm trying to read, what kind of flex is this? You know what I mean? Like, why would you pull out guns on peaceful protesters if you're not being threatened? So I'm thinking, okay, maybe.
It's a power flex. It's a power flex, right? Like they have this huge house. Clearly, they have this huge house. They're lawyers. So you mentioned earlier fouls not being charged. I'm pretty sure they acted within the law and could probably defend in court that they felt like their property or their lives were in jeopardy as people were walking by. So they knew that they could go out there legally and hold their guns and point them at people. But the biggest thing, first of all, the thing that scared me most about this video is being prior military. This guy is holding his assault rifle wrong. He's holding it the wrong way. So even if he were to pull a trigger and that, that bullet hits somebody, there's a part where he struggles with the strap. He's struggling with the strap. That rifle shoots very powerfully. He's going to fall into that column or something, trying to shoot that weapon off. So and then she's holding her weapon terribly and with the finger on the trigger. So you have two, not only wealthy, educated people, but two people who don't know how to handle firearms, standing in their front yard. And the whole flex is power, right? It's this whole fear that Black Lives Matter and Black activists are coming to take away what they've worked so hard for. And it's bullshit. You know what I mean? I want to find out what kind of lawyers they are, because what they worked so hard for is the exact system that we're fighting against. And it would be nicer to see more lawyers on the side of activists and demonstrators and people, again, like I'm talking about, trying to do the policy work to change some of these policies, than actually seeing them proving us right. That here are two representatives of your racist justice system standing outside, brandishing weapons that they don't know how to shoot and don't know how to handle, all to to perpetuate this fear of a loss of power.
It's pretty stunning, and the situation could have gone a lot different, y'all. I mean, St. Louis is wild. Like,
they don't play in St. Louis. They lucky. They lucky that it was them that walked past their house, because some of them cats out there do not play.
No, they do not. They do not. Shout out to St. Louis County, all the North County, all the little unincorporated towns out there in St. Louis. We definitely riding with y'all. Again, so switching gears, or at least going to another place in the country where there were protests being held and police appeared to brutalize protesters. It was this incredibly disturbing scene from Detroit. And it really harkened back to what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, not that long ago, where peaceful protester Heather Heyer was run down by a white supremacist and she was killed. But I want you to keep that in mind as you're looking at this video from Detroit of a Detroit police officer in a very marked SUV in a crowd of protesters, and how this police officer reacts. Let's take a look.
I said no justice. No justice. No justice.
Oh
Stunning pictures there coming out of Detroit where the police officer appeared to hit the gas and accelerate into protesters who were surrounding the vehicle chanting "No justice, no peace." Now, the chief of police of the Detroit Police Department had comments in regards to this, and I'm going to paraphrase him, but he basically said that he would have reacted the same way. He would have done the same thing. And he claimed that the officer appeared to be being attacked. And that's not what I saw. Maybe I can ask y'all's opinion about what you think you saw there. But when you see a vehicle driven really by anyone, it could have been someone who just opposed the protesters, which probably the police officer did. But to accelerate, to drive, to hit the gas while there are just bodies around your vehicle and you're in an SUV, definitely assault at minimum. Easy, Jackson. What is your thoughts on what you just witnessed there?
I just think that, I think that right now, at this very moment, we as public, as activists, as protesters, have to be very careful, because you're dealing with people who have shown and proven that their mental health is not in the greatest place. They're very scared right now. You have all this talk about defunding the police, which for a lot of people, they're thinking about their house, their car, their livelihood that they're about to lose if, in fact, this goes down. I'm not excusing the police behavior at all. It's disgusting. But I think that we as the public, as the activists and protesters, have to be a little more wiser when confronting them like that in public. You're talking about people who are carrying weapons and they don't have the wherewithal right now. Things are getting crazy. If you think Karens of the world are losing their minds, what do you think these officers are going through? They are insane. They are not mentally stable people walking around with weaponized vehicles and armed weapons on them. Like you just got to be more careful. I personally would not have been that close to the vehicle just because I don't trust them. I don't think that I think that they wanted to run somebody over or kill somebody.
Lisa, before I get your reaction to what you saw in Detroit, I wanted to take us to Aurora, Colorado, where there were a number of vigils and demonstrations held in honor of Elijah McClain, the young Black man who was killed by Aurora Police Department last August. And now his case is finally getting some new attention, where he was stopped for allegedly looking suspicious. He was wearing a ski mask. His family has come out and said that he was anemic. So that's a justification for wearing a ski mask. But when he was approached by police, they ended up putting him in an illegal chokehold. When the paramedics came, he was injected with ketamine, which is, again, a whole nother disturbing element of this case, in addition to the fact that Elijah eventually lost his life some days later in the hospital. But he was known for playing his violin for stray cats, amongst other amazing deeds that said a lot about the quality of his character. And in honor of him, protesters took to the streets for a violin vigil where people were playing their violins in honor of Elijah. But that was not even that was even apparently too much for the Aurora police, as they closed in on protesters attempting to break up this vigil. Let's have a look at that video.
No, 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 no. No. You've got to be kidding me. No!
So the last clip you saw there were people who attended the protest forming a human chain around the artists and the musicians who were playing in honor of Elijah McClain. You know, guys, I am quite accustomed to seeing police beat up Black and brown people, but when they start pepper spraying white families in the park with white children, that takes it up a whole nother notch, because we know that the police have traditionally been defending white interests, white power, white property, and generally white people. We know white people have a different experience with the police, but I feel like it's all coming undone now, where even whiteness may not be able to save you if they feel as if that they don't agree with the nature of your protest. Lisa Snowden, what do you think about what just happened there with police starting to pepper spray families, white people getting pepper sprayed in the park? When will it end?
Yeah, so like two things. It's interesting that you brought up Heather Heyer, is that her name? The lady who was killed in Virginia years ago. And then this, because it's like your whiteness protects you up until the point that you know, kind of abandon that solidarity, and then you're just as vulnerable. The second thing this makes me think of when I saw it the first time was really like a lot of the ways that this period reminds me of the last kind of period of upheaval we went through when Black people were getting killed back in like 2016, 2017. And I'm remembering like when a rapper here in Baltimore, Lil Scooter, I think his name Lil Scooter, was killed. And I remember there was a celebration of his life. I want to say it was in Sandtown, but I might be wrong. I don't know if you remember this, Easy. And Black people there. Right. Yeah, so like Black people convened and wanted to celebrate his life. And immediately the police showed up and surrounded this. And I think it ended up being kind of a thing. So it's like, it feels like this is a lot of a repeat, but now like more white people are involved. So I'm just wondering like if that's going to make the difference, because we already know that like our Black lives don't matter, but maybe if enough white people are abandoning that solidarity that comes with whiteness and that protection, you know, when they see these kind of things, and we can't avoid them. We all have our phones in our hand. We all are on YouTube like we are right now. We're all on Twitter and Facebook. Maybe that will be part of what helps bring the change.
Hop in there, Easy Jackson. I mean, we know that white people are not immune to death and brutality when it comes to standing up for the civil rights of Black and brown people. I mean, we saw that during the freedom rides of the 1960s and 70s in the civil rights era, where white people got killed by the Klan, by the cops, by a variety of interests representing white supremacy. But I haven't experienced this in my lifetime. Like, this is new to me as a 40-something-year-old, to see the police jump on a mostly peaceful white crowd, especially when you look at what exactly they were doing. They were attending a vigil where violins were being played, for God's sake. Yeah,
that's the part that gets me. Like, as a musician, regardless of their color, like they were playing violins. Like, you know, I've even seen them show up to peaceful hip hop and rap shows like that in the park, especially 2015 when we had Freddie Gray happening here. You know, we would assemble and you'd see police show up like that. But man, for violin, it's just like indicative of how much of a point they are trying to make to show that we don't matter, that this doesn't matter. Even you defending this young Black man in the most peaceful way possible is not acceptable. So we're going to show up, we're going to bust this up, we're going to run y'all over. I just feel like, for me, what this makes me wonder a lot of times is how many of these officers are embarrassed. Like, when you look on TV and you see yourself, see this, and you know that this is what you represent every day. This is what you put on a uniform to go and support every day. When are y'all going to either leave or or step up and say something, like the ones that are in there. I remember when I was in the Navy, it was the early 2000s. I was coming up on the end of my enlistment, and I remember how people were protesting the bombing of Vieques, which is an island in Puerto Rico where the Navy, we used it as target practice. And I remember being really embarrassed by that. Like, I was proud to be serving my country. I was proud to be, I was proud to have been able to be in the military. But that was a move for me that made me not want to re-enlist. Like I was so embarrassed and ashamed that we were doing this to an island just for target practice. And then you get into the war on terrorism and all these things. I started to feel embarrassed for the uniform that I was wearing. And I'm wondering really, like, at what point are these people embarrassed? I've lost friends because of my stance on police brutality, because they have a relative who's a police officer or, whatever. And it's like, well, at what point does it matter enough, especially Black officers? Like, at what point does it matter enough for you to stand up and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this? They are part of unions. They have a right to protest. But that Fraternal Order of Police is not your typical union. It's a union that upholds this supremacy and racism, and perpetuates this police thing. So it's like I'm looking at these bodies in armor walking towards these people, but underneath that armor are people. These are people. And I'm just wondering, like, when are they going to stand up on the inside and say, hey, this is wrong? It's really sad on a human level. It's an absolute shame. I would be so embarrassed if anybody in my family was in law enforcement right now.
Yeah, I definitely can share that sentiment because seeing how police have been responding to a lot of these peaceful protests and even to the protests that were rowdy initially in the beginning. I mean, to see how President Trump called out not only National Guard, but federal correctional officers where they, were beating up protesters in the nation's capital, where the helicopters were swooping down as if they were dropping down on, insurgents in the desert. I mean, it's been unreal for the law enforcement response, but it's also drawn a very stark contrast, something that we certainly can't ignore, seeing how a lot of these police departments are armed to the teeth, literally with military weapons and everything that you can think of. Meanwhile, on the medical end of the pandemic that we're dealing with, a lot of nurses and doctors are still saying that we don't have enough personal protective equipment and certainly not nearly enough testing, as COVID-19 is making a surge across many states in the country, including Florida, Texas, California, Arizona right now are being reported as some of the hot spots. In Los Angeles County, health officials there are saying that the rise in positive COVID infections, they're calling it alarming. And they are very afraid that we are about to approach a second wave, even though we're not quite out of the first wave, which is incredible. In a state like Texas, where the governor advocated very strongly for a reopening several weeks ago, he is now walking that back. Greg Abbott said that if he knew what he knew now, he would have slowed down the reopening of Texas. And as a result, he has closed bars across the state again. If you're trying to get a coronavirus test in Texas, might take you a while, baby, because we are seeing pictures of cars stretched for miles trying to get COVID tests. A lot of times the testing facilities are running out of tests in a given day, and the rates keep climbing in Texas. The hospitalizations keep climbing in Texas. And we're still very much in this pandemic, Lisa, and it's very frightening to see, number one, the casual nature of how Americans at large, let's take the state and federal governments out of this for a second, because people in the streets are just deciding, like, they just wish the Rona away and poof, no more Rona. We don't have to wear masks. We can just go about our business as we like to. What has been some of your observations by the way people are taking the pandemic either seriously or not as seriously as we go into the summer months?
I mean, personally, it annoys and frightens me because I want my friends and family to live. And as we were talking a little bit before the show, I saw them out living their best lives this weekend. And I'm like, please, y'all, like, no, I can't even go to your funeral. But like, really from like, if we look like, that's sad. And I wish it wasn't the case. But this is really a top down thing. Like, this is the thing where if our leadership from the White House on down was really setting the tone for this, we wouldn't be here. And I think that it's really important. Like, it's easy for me to be annoyed with like my mom who wants me to come over and invites me like every weekend. But I've really been thinking about how much the tone nationally would be if we did have a competent leader who was out in front of us saying, hey guys, like wear fucking masks. And like here in Maryland, although we're a blue state, we have a Republican governor, just like I think Florida and Texas, where maybe, you know, they walk these lines where they're not trying to seem as crazy as Trump, but they're still towing that party line. And even here, like it's not as enforced. I'm in Baltimore County and I see people walking around everywhere. And Larry Hogan has said safer at home, but Larry Hogan has also said, okay, you can now go out and party in like Ocean City. So like, it's annoying personally and it's concerning personally, but like, this is absolutely a failure of leadership on like pretty much every level.
And the big difference between, go ahead, Easy. I wanted to make a quick point because, you know, we saw thousands of people, by the tens of thousands, have been out in the streets over the past month protesting the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, amongst others. And yet healthcare officials have said that they have not seen any significant spikes as a result of those protests. As we saw, most of the people were out in the streets wearing masks. However, in states where they are just trying to reopen bars and restaurants, let's use Michigan as an example. There was a story that indicated this one from the Detroit Times, I think it was, Dwayne, I think we have that tweet also, where 100 or more positive coronavirus tests or cases have been attributed to this one bar in East Lansing, Michigan, where people were hanging out. And then from this 100 people, they all live in different parts of the Detroit metro area. So they all went back to 10 different towns in 4 different counties after hanging out at this one location at this bar in East Lansing, Easy. So it's like, you know, the economic part of wanting to reopen the country is really what's driving this pandemic, not so much people protesting in the streets.
Yeah, it's really wild. It's scary. I was just talking to a friend about this before we got on this call about the need for people to socialize. And I think the most heartbreaking part about this, right, is that what we're seeing is not so much people who don't care that there's a virus out there. It's like people acting on this need to socialize and be out and be around people. And then you're putting them in bars where you're drinking. There's access to drugs, we all know as well. So like, you know, either way, you're bringing down your inhibitions, right? So you get social, you're drinking a little while, now you're on people, now you took your mask off, and it's just really scary. It's heartbreaking, I think, because it's people, the people, like you said earlier, leadership is failing. So, you know, there are people who are just going out here and doing it and not using the best judgment. And, you know, it's just an unfortunate thing. They've been locked in the house for months and, you know, now people want to get out. And unfortunately, on the other side are the capitalists saying, well, yeah, come spend your money here. And that's all that matters to them at the end of the day is the dollar.
Why is this country one that has normalized mass death? Like I've seen this perspective taken several times on social media where they're saying that Americans are more upset at the minor personal inconvenience of being asked to wear a mask, more so than the fact that 130,000 people have died in roughly a 4-month time span. And the White House Coronavirus Task Force has resumed its meetings after being pretty much silent for well over a month. And Dr. Anthony Fauci today was testifying in front of a Senate committee where he even speculated that we could reach about 100,000 positive tests a month, which is a staggering number, in addition to potentially 300,000 deaths by the end of the year. And he walked back some of the optimistic outlook on a timeline for delivering a vaccine. He was like, well, don't expect it in 2020. We might get it in 2021, but 2020 is sort of pushing it. And there's so much discussion about how do we move forward? How do we reopen schools? How do people get back to work? And at the same time, we're dealing with the crisis of over 40 million people unemployed, people who've lost their health insurance. And then Trump is trying to challenge the validity of the Affordable Care Act in court. I mean, Lisa, we are walking headfirst into a perfect storm of fuckery. And no one seems to be trying to go at this from a sensible perspective. What are some of the ways that the federal government, first and foremostly, needs to address this tsunami of pandemics?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a government official, but it seems like actually making this a priority would be a great start. Like letting this crazy man be in charge of everything, who's decided because it makes him feel bad and makes him look like a weak leader that this is not a thing anymore, it would be a good start. Like getting rid of that guy. I think he said like last week, if we didn't have so much testing, then we wouldn't have so much coronavirus. And he was like dead serious. So like that would be a great start. Other than that, I am not a government official. My job is to write about what they say and also make fun of them on Twitter. But that's not my job, but I like to do it. But yeah. And
well, you do that part of your job really well.
As an aside, drinking at home is amazing and more people should do it.
I agree. I agree. You can get creative with it. You can make smoothies. You can do all kind of stuff that, it might cost you a little extra to do in a bar.
Yeah, I got the Costco right down the street from me that sells alcohol. I might have to head him up. But guys, a lot of the health experts have said to us that the way that we're going to beat this virus is through more testing. But it appears as though the federal government is not willing to lead us on that end. Lisa, as you mentioned, Trump already said we test too much. We've tested too many people as it is. And, folks are trying to get creative about how to either get themselves tested, as we saw long lines already in Texas, but I know here in Maryland, generally, if you want to get a coronavirus test, you can go get one without a doctor's note and for free at this point in time. But when we're talking about also people who are recovering from coronavirus, because coronavirus is in addition to killing people, for the people that it doesn't kill, it fucks them up pretty good, right? People have lasting damage to their brain, to their heart, to their kidneys. It's to the point where, a lot of people are having to go to physical therapy and have to relearn to do a lot of things. But at the same time, we're teetering on not only healthcare crisis, but y'all, the first of the month is tomorrow. There's a lot of people who are possibly going to get evicted tomorrow. Like, Easy, I know as an activist and people, as someone who has worked in the community, you know some of the steps and some of the demands that grassroots organizations are calling for to resolve some of these problems, because this shit has already been thought about lots. It's just not been implemented into actions and policy.
Yeah. I mean, luckily right now, I've said this on other shows, and I say it more and more. I'm glad that Baltimore has become such a strong activist city. Here so far we've been seeing the people take the lead. Right now. So right now, people are calling for a rent freeze because that's about to be over. So we want to renew that so people aren't getting evicted. and folks here are, paying attention. But I feel for a lot of places across the country, even some of the ones who shut down, that are more conservative and less considerate of those who haven't been able to do things like make rent and pay their water bill and light bill during this time, because this whole thing is just a clusterfuck. You pointed out the health issues, and then on top of that, all of this, these type of policy things we have to address. Is just, it's a really scary time.
Some comments from the comment, lady and gentleman. Al Grzaznik says, 100% easy. After my first deployment, I swore to never re-enlist. Also from the comments, we have Prince of Judah 79, referring to one of the police videos we saw earlier. He said, or they said, here comes the troops with no soul. Yep, that seems to be about accurate. Red says, now Americans know a bit about how people felt in Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, et cetera, et cetera. I guess when it comes to over-policing, and especially specifically American military and or law enforcement overstepping the civil rights and human rights of lots of folks. But guys, I want to go to, a larger question, because the issue of America being a failed state. And I know from the perspective of Black America, we'd be like, hell yeah, America failed us a long time ago.
We've been singing that song for years.
I mean, but when we look now, like as we're able to zoom out on like the larger picture of the United States, where our citizens don't have health care, where people who were, living and working in households making decent salaries are now out of work and can't afford food, and people are in long food lines, and there's a pandemic, and there's racial injustice, which is causing unrest in the streets, fighting back against the authoritarian state of law enforcement. Again, something I saw on social media that sparked a train of thought was someone was talking about how, as kids, how we were conditioned to view communism, right? How when the Berlin Wall fell and when the Soviet Union fell apart, we Americans wag their finger and be like, see, that's why you don't want communism, because the state will take your house and make 10 people live with you and make you wait in a food line. Well, fast forward 2020, look where we are. America, in very much a lot of those same circumstances that we decried were the result of communism. But this is 100% the result of capitalism, Lisa Snowden. So has the ideal of America, has it failed now for all Americans, not just marginalized and vulnerable Americans like Black folks?
I think so. And I also think back to a comment that you made a few minutes ago when you were talking about how we're okay with death, like all these coronavirus deaths. And it made me realize, like, we've always been surrounded by death. Even like before coronavirus hit, we were getting used to these school shootings that only went away because we shut down schools. Or if you want to go all the way back to like, some of these folks that have monuments to them and the Native people that were living here that were just like massacred. And, I could go on and on about what this country's done to Black people, but it's always been that way. A lot of the stuff that we've done, we've been innocent in that we haven't had to see things in like Iraq and Iran and all the other countries. But yeah, I think it's pretty much on full display right now.
Easy, given that America is looking more and more like a failed state, and people are pushing back against mainly right now racial injustice, but I mean, economic injustice is a huge thing. I wish I had video of the DC protesters outside of Jeff Bezos's Washington, DC mansion over the weekend. I don't know if y'all saw that, but they even rolled the guillotine out in front of Jeff Bezos's house. I'm like, damn, I wish I'd have been there for that. Billionaires have come the fuck up during this pandemic, and people are on the other end of that looking and feeling real bad with no jobs and dwindling money for food and shelter. What's the next step for us to take in order to move this ball further on down the field? Is it going to take a general strike in order to bring the capitalist corporations to a sense where they need to deal with the working people equitably at this point, or what's next?
I think it's definitely going to take us continuing on this path of protest, of sharing information, not letting up. One of my favorite Harlem rappers, Jim Jones, recently went on about this, and he was saying, people are reacting right now because they've been home. They've had the opportunity to sit down, sit still, and really see what's going on. And I think what needs to happen next, in my opinion, is that that we continue to even lay it on even thicker. If I had a magic wand in Colorado, we would be right now organizing violin and orchestra protests all over the city, of Aurora. Like, don't let up. I think we need to not let up. I think we need to hit them in their dollars where it hurts. Stop spending so much money with these capitalist companies, and really let them see, like, if you're not with us, then you're against us. Look, all of these companies are not they are not separate from politics and policy. These politicians, governors, senators, the presidents, all of them, they go to these same companies and they get endorsement checks from them. These companies build PACs. They have political action funds and lobbyists that they send in to work on things that interest them. The same way they can change Aunt Jemima's face on a syrup bottle, they can do the same. With that same move, they can defund the police. They can reallocate resources to healthcare and education and housing and things like that we've been yelling about for years. So we can't let up, because we know y'all can do it, because you're doing it. You're literally, like, you're doing it for the wrong reason in a lot of ways, but you're doing it. You're using your resources, your relationship, your power to get what you want. And we have to continue to push back in a way where it's like, if one of those things you want is for us to spend money with you, then you need to be sending your lobbyists in, like Kanye West, to talk to Donald Trump.
Kanye West need to stay right where he's at.
I don't know if y'all saw this. I hate to even talk about Kim Kardashian because
the horse.
Oh, girl. Oh. Really, Kim?
See, look, y'all always do that. I didn't say nothing about Kim Kardashian. I said Kanye West. I didn't say nothing about Kim Kardashian.
Well, that's Kim Kardashian's husband, so you did say something about Kanye West. Look, Kim
now
tweeted
if we
out.
was talking about Kim Kardashian and then I brought up Kanye West, then that's not right either.
Just to fill everybody in, because I'm sure y'all do not follow Kim Kardashian West on Twitter and you were not missing a thing. However, she did tweet out that her daughter North has this very, I guess, prized breed of horse. And she said, we have 14 of these prized horses at our ranch. 14 horses. Is that right, Kim? 14 in the pandemic while 40 million people are unemployed?
To quote one of her sisters in an iconic, I think, memed quote, there's people dying, Kim. Like, come on. Read the room, Kim Kardashian West.
Hey, last question before we go, gang. So celebrity has taken a bit of a hit during the pandemic. Obviously, celebrities are not able to gainfully make income the way that they were pre-pandemic. As we know, movie sets and productions are shut down and talk show audiences are closed and concerts halls are shuttered all across the country. People are not able to go out and get that tour money. So they have been stuck in the house tweeting sometimes problematic thoughts and opinions about what's going on. What's celebrity going to look like at the end of this? Are people going to give a shit what celebrities have to say about anything? I'm also specifically thinking about BET, the awards over the weekend, where Beyonce very, vehemently encourage people to vote like your life depended on it, as if people haven't been standing in line trying to vote at broken machines and polling places for many years now, Beyonce. Like, people, are trying to vote, honey. They just can't because the machine don't work, baby girl. What's celebrity going to look like at the end of this?
It's going to be weird. It's definitely going to be weird. I think that you're probably going to see a lot more everyday people becoming more celebrities now. But you know, I mean, I think celebrity never loses what it is, right? There was always a time where, you know, celebrity was a celebrity, and they're out of touch with. Some of them are more out of touch than others with what everyday people are going through. But I think it's going to be even more weird. People are still tuning in. You know, the moment somebody jumps on live or you know, tweets, people are still hanging on. So it's not like celebrity's going to go anywhere. It's just going to get weirder than it already is.
Lisa, I'll let you have the final word, dear.
I don't know. I think they should be like Kanye West and be quiet somewhere and give us money. Donate your money, celebrities.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. Just redistribute that wealth, celebrities. You can't take $100 million with you when you go. Guys, we're at 6:02. We're going to wrap it up right there for episode number 61 of Stir Crazy. I'd like to thank our guest, Lisa Snowden-McCray, Easy Jackson. Thank y'all very much. That Maryland United panel. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Hope to see it again.
Thank you, Kim.
And thanks to everybody who was checking us out on Periscope. And don't forget, we will be back on Thursday. Our new schedule, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Even though we won't be on this Friday because of 4th of July. So I guess you just go see us twice this week. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to hit us up. stircrazy@therealnews.com. We will see y'all Thursday. And don't forget, Wednesday night, the new episode, the premiere of, I think this is episode 3 or 4, Dwayne, of Why You Should Give a Fuck, hosted by Tunde Ogunfolaju and Genevieve Montanar. So Why You Should Give a Fuck, Wednesday nights premiering right here on the YouTube channel at 9 p.m. So don't forget about that. 7 p.m. That's what I said, Dwayne. I said 7 p.m. but I actually said 9, but I'm acting like I said 7. 7 p.m. Wednesday nights, Why You Should Give a Fuck right here on The Real News. You guys have a good rest of your evening. See you. Bye.